"Get out. You don't belong here." The words cracked through the diner as Brad Morrison's fist slammed into the face of 72-year-old Sam Washington. The veteran staggered, his coffee splashing across the floor, coins from his wallet rolling under tables. The room froze. Customers stopped mid-bite. Forks clinked against plates. Every phone lifted into the air, cameras aimed. This looked simple. An elderly black man, frail in a worn cardigan, attacked by a younger white bully who thought he owned the place. Easy target. Or so Brad believed. Sam's cheek burned from the slap, but his eyes didn't waver. The glint of an American flag pin on his collar caught the light, and for a brief second, it seemed to shine brighter than the neon clock above the counter. Brad sneered, towering over him. "Know your place, old man." He spat the words like venom, leaning close enough that the entire diner could smell his sour breath. The place was dead silent, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Maria, the waitress behind the counter, clutched the coffee pot in her hands. She whispered to no one in particular, "That idiot has no idea." Her voice shook, but her eyes stayed locked on Sam, because what Brad couldn't see under the cardigan was a purple heart, polished every week. And what he didn't notice in the trembling hand reaching for a phone wasn't fear, it was discipline. Military training doesn't fade with age. Sam scrolled calmly, his fingers steady. On that screen, one name sat at the very top of his contacts list. James. Director. Homeland Security. Brad smirked at the phones recording him, mistaking the silence as fear. He puffed his chest, waiting for laughter, for applause, for someone to pat him on the back, but no one did. Instead, the diner full of witnesses stared, wide-eyed, realizing they were capturing something far bigger than a barroom scuffle. Sam's jaw clenched. His voice came low, controlled. "You just made a mistake." The words carried weight, not as a threat but as a fact carved in stone. Brad laughed, shoving him again. "What are you going to do about it, Grandpa? Call for help?" Help was one call away. Federal backup. Protection details. A national spotlight Brad never imagined would shine on him. And as Sam's thumb hovered over that one contact, the diner collectively held its breath. Every camera kept rolling. Every eye stayed fixed on the old man who seemed powerless until now. Hit subscribe. Because in the next moment, this bully is about to learn what real power looks like. 30 minutes earlier, the diner buzzed like any other Tuesday morning in Millbrook. The smell of bacon and hash browns drifted through the air, clinging to the walls and mixing with the hiss of coffee pots. Farmers gathered in corner booths, swapping talk about crop prices and weather. Office workers on their way to the county seat scanned newspapers or checked emails. It was the kind of slow, steady morning that looked the same every week, the kind of routine that felt safe. At exactly 7:30 a.m., the glass door pushed open and Sam Washington walked in. 72 years old, his steps were measured but steady, his navy cardigan pressed and clean even though it had seen better days. Every Tuesday, same time, same order. Black coffee, wheat toast, exact change pulled carefully from a worn leather wallet. People noticed him, but in the quiet way you notice furniture that has always been in the room. He belonged, though some refused to see it. Maria Santos, the waitress behind the counter, lifted her eyes and smiled the moment he entered. She didn't need to ask. She poured his coffee, black, no sugar, no cream, before he sat down. "Morning, Mr. Washington," she said warmly. "Morning, Maria. The usual, please." "Thank you," he replied, polite as always. His voice carried the kind of calm that made people listen without realizing they were listening. Most customers thought of him as just an elderly man passing time over breakfast. But there were small details, if you paid attention. The way he always chose a seat with his back against the wall, where he could see the exits. The way he folded his napkin with exact creases. The way his American flag pin and American Legion pin sat side by side on his collar, never crooked, never tarnished. To the untrained eye, it was habit. To those who knew, it was discipline. Military training never leaves you. Outside, on the sidewalk across the street, a college student set up his camera. Tommy Carter, journalism major, was filming small-town life for a class project. He wanted shots of coffee steam, neon diner signs, and conversations that looked authentic. He had no idea his assignment would capture history. Adjusting his tripod, he checked audio levels. oblivious that the lens he focused on Murphy's diner would soon record something the entire nation would see. Inside, Sam's phone buzzed once. A text. "Dad, big meeting with the cabinet today. Love you. James." Sam smiled softly. He typed back with one finger, slow but deliberate. "Proud of you, son. Be safe." Then he slipped the phone back into his pocket and reached for his coffee. Nothing seemed unusual. The chatter rose and fell. Forks scraped plates. Life carried on. But across the diner, Brad Morrison sat in his corner booth, scrolling through his phone, his eyes landing on Sam with growing disdain. For months, Brad's stares had lingered, his muttered comments cutting louder each week. Maria had noticed, but money and tips often silenced complaints. That morning, the pattern was about to break. The clock ticked toward 7:45. Outside, Tommy steadied his lens. Inside, Sam stirred his coffee once, folded his napkin neatly, and sat in calm dignity, completely unaware that within minutes, his ordinary ritual would ignite a storm, because this Tuesday morning wasn't going to end like the others, and everyone in that diner was about to see why. Brad Morrison's patience ran out at 7:45 a.m. He pushed away his empty plate, rose from his booth, and walked across the linoleum floor with deliberate heavy steps. The sound of his boots thudded louder than the chatter, louder than the clock on the wall. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Eyes followed him as he crossed the diner like a man on stage. Sam looked up as Brad's shadow fell over his table. Calm eyes met hostile ones. "Morning," Sam said politely, voice steady as though greeting any stranger. Brad leaned closer, making sure everyone could hear. "You seem real comfortable here," he sneered. "Real comfortable for someone who doesn't belong." The words hung heavy in the silence. Maria's hand twitched toward her phone in her apron pocket. Mrs. Patterson, the mayor's wife, lowered her newspaper and frowned. Fire Chief Rodriguez shifted in his seat, his jaw tight. Sam's reply came quiet but firm. "I'm just having coffee. I'm not bothering anyone," Brad smirked. "That's where you're wrong. Your being here bothers me. Bothers a lot of good people." His voice carried across the diner, dripping with venom. Sam reached for his wallet, sliding a few quarters across the table, ready to leave with dignity. But Brad's hand slammed down hard, rattling the coins and sloshing the coffee. "Don't walk away when I'm talking to you." The room tensed. Maria pulled her phone free and started recording. Tommy Carter outside adjusted his camera, sensing something shift inside. The security camera above blinked its red light steadily. Sam rose slowly, years of military training in the set of his shoulders. He tried to move toward the door, but Brad sidestepped, blocking his path. "You'll leave when I say you can leave," he growled. "Please move," Sam said, calm, unshaken. Brad shoved him hard. The old man stumbled against the table, his hip striking the edge. Coffee cups crashed to the floor, shattering with a sharp crack that echoed like gunfire. Rodriguez pushed his chair back. "That's enough, Brad," but Brad wasn't finished. Rage and pride mixed in his eyes. He stepped closer, towering over Sam. "Now you're going to apologize for making decent folks uncomfortable." Sam's voice stayed level. "I apologize if my presence upset you, but I've done nothing wrong." "Wrong answer," Brad snapped. And then, without warning, his open palm whipped across Sam's face. The sound cracked through the diner like a whip. Gasps erupted. Maria screamed. Mrs. Patterson's hand flew to her mouth. Rodriguez lunged to his feet. Sam's head turned with the force, his cheek burning, a thin line of blood where Brad's ring cut skin. For a second, he looked like a helpless old man, frail, humiliated, broken, but then his chin lifted. His eyes locked on Brad's. 72 years of service and dignity rose to the surface. And in that moment, the bully had no idea what storm he had just unleashed. The diner was still frozen in silence when Sam reached into his pocket. Not for a weapon, not for protection, just his phone. His hand was steady, movements slow, precise as though he had rehearsed them 1,000 times. Brad laughed, mistaking calm for weakness. "What's that for, Grandpa? Gonna call 911? Go ahead. Tell them a real man put you in your place." His voice cracked with arrogance, trying to perform for the room. Sam didn't answer. He scrolled with one thumb, stopping at the very first name in his contacts. The letters glowed on the screen. James, DHS Director. 1 tap. The call rang once, twice. The third ring clicked and a voice filled the air, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Dad, are you okay?" The tone wasn't casual. It was sharp, commanding, protective. Every head in the diner turned. Maria's phone kept recording, capturing every second. Fire Chief Rodriguez froze mid-step. Mrs. Patterson gasped. Even the hum of the coffee machine seemed to fade. Brad blinked, confused. "Who's that supposed to be?" He muttered, his smirk faltering. Sam's reply was calm, steady. "I'm fine, son. But there's been an incident." The entire diner held its breath. On the other end, the voice answered firmly. "Where are you? I can have agents there in 20 minutes. The word agents cut through the air like thunder. Brad's grin collapsed. His face went pale. His shoulders, once puffed out in pride, sagged an inch. "Agents?" he whispered. Sam placed the phone flat on the table, speaker on, his gaze never leaving Brad's. "I'm at Murphy's Diner in Millbrook. A man named Brad Morrison just assaulted me. It's all on camera." Every phone in the room caught the moment. Maria zoomed in. Tommy's lens outside pressed tight against the glass. The security camera above hummed silently. The voice on the phone grew sharper. "Stay where you are, Dad. A protective detail is on the way. And legal will need full witness statements." Legal, agents, protective detail. Each word made Brad shrink smaller. His face drained of color. His lips parted, but no sound came out. The ring on his finger, the same one that had drawn blood from Sam's cheek, suddenly felt heavy as lead. The customers in the diner realized at the same moment. This wasn't just a frail veteran. This was the father of one of the most powerful men in the country. Sam didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His dignity filled the silence. "You wanted to make an example," he told Brad quietly. "Now you've become one." Brad stumbled back, his arrogance evaporating. Phones kept recording. The room knew. Nothing about this confrontation would stay small town anymore. It was about to go national. The silence shattered within minutes. Maria's live stream pinged on phones across town. What started with a handful of viewers ballooned to hundreds, then thousands. Comments poured in so fast they scrolled too quick to read. "Is this real? That's DHS Director James Washington's dad. Brad Morrison is finished." Inside the diner, Brad's bravado collapsed under the weight of every lens pointed at him. He tried to hide his face with one hand, but it was too late. His slap, his shove, his words, captured in high definition from 3 different angles, were already circling the internet. Maria didn't flinch. She held her phone steady, tears in her eyes, but her voice calm. "The world needs to see this," she whispered. Outside, Tommy Carter adjusted his camera, heart racing. He hadn't come for drama, but now he realized he was filming something far bigger than his class project. He zoomed in through the window, catching Sam sitting upright, calm as stone, while Brad shifted nervously like a trapped animal. The first sirens weren't federal. They were local. Sheriff Patricia Hayes pulled up in her cruiser, boots crunching gravel as she stepped inside. Her eyes swept the broken cups, the phones recording, and the tension so thick it hung in the air. "What's going on here?" she asked, though her voice sounded more careful than commanding. Maria didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, screen in hand. "Sheriff, Brad Morrison assaulted Mr. Washington. It's all right here." Hayes took the phone, her face tightening as the video played. Brad's words, "Your type doesn't belong," echoed back at her. The shove, the slap, Sam's quiet dignity, all of it undeniable. She lowered the phone slowly. "We'll document this." Her tone was cautious, her eyes flicking toward Brad. Meanwhile, radio host Mike Stevens interrupted his morning program. "We're getting unconfirmed reports of an incident at Murphy's Diner involving a local man and the father of a federal official." Within minutes, the first news van rolled up outside, followed by another. Mayor Thompson's call hit Sheriff Hayes' phone before she even stepped back out. His voice buzzed through the speaker. "Patricia, whatever's happening down there, handle it quietly. Bad publicity will crush us before tourist season, but nothing about this was going to stay quiet." Tommy's upload hit 50,000 views before the top of the hour. Maria's livestream doubled that. The hashtag Church Millbrook Diner trended regionally by mid-morning. Inside, Sam sat with his hands folded on the table, calm, measured, his cheek red but his posture unshaken. Brad sat 2 booths away, pale and sweating. Every eye in the room on him, the sheriff glanced between them, trapped between local politics and the undeniable truth already spreading online. And the truth was clear. This wasn't going to stay a small-town embarrassment. It was about to explode onto the national stage. By noon, the story had already shifted from a single slap to something much bigger. Federal investigators reviewing early clips noticed patterns in the language Brad used, the way he spoke about who belonged and who didn't. Reporters digging into local records started asking the same question. Was this really an isolated outburst, or part of something deeper? The first cracks appeared in community memory. A Hispanic grandfather humiliated at the grocery store after being accused of shoplifting, later proven false. A black family asked to leave the community center during their child's basketball game. A Native veteran forced to show extra identification at the polling station, even though his credentials were valid. Each case dismissed as a misunderstanding, each one quietly forgotten. Now they resurfaced with sharp clarity. Money trails followed next. Brad Morrison's generous business development donations turned out to bankroll security cameras in select neighborhoods where new minority families had moved in. Loan records from the local bank revealed quiet denials based on community standards. Realtors whispered about steering families away from certain streets, and then came the online groups. Investigators unearthed private chats under names like Heritage First and Protect Millbrook Values. The tone was unfiltered. Talk about keeping the town pure, about making outsiders feel unwelcome until they gave up and left. It wasn't slips of the tongue. It was coordination. Back at the diner, whispers grew louder. Maria shared screenshots with journalists. Rodriguez admitted he'd heard complaints for months. Even Mrs. Patterson, the mayor's wife, shifted uncomfortably, remembering reports her husband had brushed aside. The slap that morning hadn't created hatred. It had exposed it. Piece by piece, the picture sharpened. Millbrook wasn't just home to one loud bully. It was a town quietly running on patterns of exclusion, powered by money, silence, and fear. And now, the cameras were watching. Night fell over Millbrook, but peace didn't. Sam's phone rang past midnight. Heavy breathing, then a hissed threat before the line cut. At dawn, his garbage was scattered across the lawn. By evening, red spray paint streaked across his garage door. Slurs written in letters a foot high. Neighbors who once waved now looked away. The price of standing tall was beginning to show. Maria faced her own storm. Anonymous messages flooded her social media. Loudmouth waitresses lose jobs fast. Her work schedule appeared online with her home address. Fake accounts shared deepfakes of her vandalizing property. Fear twisted her stomach, but she refused to delete her live stream. Tommy's college life collapsed overnight. Hackers broke into his email, sending racist memes to professors under his name. His academic records leaked on forums. His phone buzzed with threats from strangers he had never met. "Drop it, kid," one message warned. Accidents happen. Even the sheriff paid Sam a visit. No body camera, no paperwork. "Look, this has gone too far," Hayes said softly. "Property values are dropping. Businesses are nervous. Maybe consider letting it go, for everyone's sake." Sam's eyes narrowed. For their sake or for yours? But alone in his kitchen at 2 a.m., with pills for blood pressure on the table, doubt crept in. Maybe Hayes was right. Maybe fighting back was only hurting people he cared about. That's when James walked through the door, driving all night from Washington. He found his father hunched in the dark, cardigan draped over his shoulders like armor too heavy to carry. "Dad," James said quietly, "do you remember what you told me when Bobby Martinez bullied kids at school?" Sam's eyes lifted slowly. "Bullies stop when someone stands up." "Exactly," James replied. "If you quit now, the next person won't have cameras or witnesses or me. And they'll lose." The weight in Sam's chest eased. The fear didn't vanish, but resolve returned. They wanted him broken. Instead, he was about to rise stronger. And at dawn, help would knock at his door. The knock came just after sunrise. When Sam opened the door, 2 strangers stood on his porch. Not federal agents, but allies, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a civil rights attorney with years of courtroom battles behind her, and beside her, Marcus Thompson, a cybersecurity specialist and veteran like Sam. "One veteran for another," Marcus said simply, shaking his hand. They didn't come with speeches. They came with tools. Within an hour, Marcus had his laptop open at Sam's kitchen table, screens glowing. "They thought they wiped the diner footage," he muttered, fingers flying across keys. "They forgot about Cloud Sync." And there it was. Every second of the confrontation was restored in crisp detail. Brad's shove, the slap, the ring-cutting skin, the insult that echoed across the diner. Maria gasped when she saw it replayed. They can't bury this now. But Marcus wasn't done. He dug deeper, pulling fragments from phones, servers, and hidden backups. A tiny camera built into Maria's phone case, installed by her cousin after late-night shifts got scary, had captured Brad's first panicked words after the slap. "Get me Mayor Thompson. We need to control the story before it explodes." That line changed everything. This wasn't a man losing his temper. It was a man plotting damage control. Conspiracy, not chaos. Dr. Martinez spread the printouts across the table. Loan files with undesirable demographics written in margins, private group chats bragging about pushing families out, emails celebrating shuttered minority-owned shops. "This isn't one man's hate," she said. "It's a system. And now we can prove it." Sam leaned back in his chair, the Purple Heart on the shelf catching a shaft of sunlight. For the first time in days, his chest felt lighter. They had receipts, allies, and truth too solid to erase, and soon the whole town would see it on the big screen. The Millbrook Community Center overflowed that night. 400 seats, 600 people crammed inside, another crowd watching on phones outside. News cameras lined the back wall. At the front sat a mediator from the state, calm, professional, and ready to keep order. Sam entered quietly, cardigan buttoned, flag pin in place. Half the room rose in a standing ovation. He nodded, acknowledging the respect but carrying it with humility. Maria, Tommy, and Fire Chief Rodriguez sat behind him, their faces tense but resolved. Brad Morrison slipped in with his lawyer, avoiding every eye, shoulders hunched. The lights dimmed. On two giant screens, Tommy's uncut footage played. Brad's words boomed, "Your type doesn't belong." The shove, the slap, Sam's steady posture, every second laid bare. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Brad's supporters shifted in their seats, faces pale. Next came evidence. Dr. Martinez walked the room through a timeline, past incidents, bank documents, donation trails, screenshots from private groups. Each slide landed like a hammer. "This was not random," she said firmly. "This was systematic exclusion for profit." Witnesses spoke. Maria admitted through tears that she had stayed quiet too long. Rodriguez confessed he had documented harassment but never reported it. Finally, Mrs. Patterson stepped up, voice shaking as she revealed recordings of her husband, the mayor, coordinating with Brad. "Leadership means choosing what's right," she said. "And I chose wrong until now." The room was silent when Sam stood. His voice carried steady. "I didn't serve my country to come home and be told I don't belong. This isn't about my son's job. It's about every parent who wants their children to live with respect." Then came the twist. Dr. Martinez held up one last document, an email from Brad 3 days before the slap. Phase 1 was successful. 3 minority businesses closed. Pressure must continue. The auditorium erupted. Even Brad's allies recoiled. His lawyer whispered frantically, but no words could undo the truth on those screens. The mediator raised her hand. "It's time to vote." Hands went up, ballots marked, phones recording. Justice or silence. Millbrook would choose in front of the nation. The ballots were counted in silence. The mediator announced the results with a steady voice. 347 in favor of full accountability measures, 89 against or abstaining. The decision was clear. Justice had carried the night. Brad Morrison slumped in his chair, face gray, sweat dripping down his temples. His lawyer packed up quietly, already knowing this was the end. Resignation from local committees, public apology, financial restitution, all demanded by the community he once thought he controlled. Sam didn't gloat. He rose slowly, thanked the mediator, and turned to the crowd. "Forgiveness is possible," he said softly, "but forgiveness requires truth. Tonight, the truth has been spoken." His words drew applause that shook the hall. In the weeks that followed, change swept Millbrook. Mayor Thompson resigned under pressure, replaced in a landslide by Maria Santos, the waitress who had refused to stay silent. Sheriff Hayes retired, her badge handed over to Fire Chief Rodriguez, now elected by townsfolk who trusted his honesty. Murphy's Diner reopened under new management, its windows plastered with a sign that read, "Everyone welcome." 3 new minority-owned businesses opened within months. A community fund reached $500,000, supporting startups and training programs. Tourists arrived, curious to see the small town that had faced its demons and chosen dignity. National outlets dubbed it the Millbrook Model. Sam returned to his quiet routine. Every Tuesday morning, he sat at his favorite booth, coffee black, wheat toast on the side. But now, the coffee was always free. Maria, juggling her mayoral duties, still worked one morning a week to remind herself where she came from. She always served Sam's order with a smile and a nod. Tommy Carter's documentary, The Sam Washington Story, When Dignity Meets Power, won a state award and landed him a full scholarship. His follow-up series, Small Towns, Big Change, was picked up by a national network. Maria's live stream grew into a daily channel for justice and community voices, drawing tens of thousands. Brad faded from headlines but not from consequence. Federal charges loomed, restitution payments emptied his accounts, and he spent long hours doing quiet community service, seen by many, applauded by none. Sam became more than a local elder. He spoke at schools, at veteran halls, at town halls across the region. His message was simple: dignity isn't given, it's chosen. His cardigan and flag pin became symbols of resilience. 6 months later, his phone rang again. Detective Angela Foster from Riverside County. "Mr. Washington, we have another case. An elderly veteran targeted, a community divided. We could use someone who understands dignity under fire." Sam looked at his Purple Heart, then out the window at children laughing on Millbrook's rebuilt Main Street. He smiled faintly. "Some fights are worth fighting twice. When do you need me?" The story didn't end in Millbrook. It was only the beginning. And for millions watching, one truth rang clear. Sometimes the greatest heroes wear cardigans and count quarters.